Hi everyone, welcome back to this tutorial on how to create and position the organizational chart in the Blazor Diagram component. In this video, I will show you how to create an organizational chart and align it using orientation, horizontal and vertical spacing, subtree alignment, and assistant properties. First, I'll open an existing Blazor web application where I have the Blazor Diagram component with height and width properties. If you would like to watch the video on how to create this app, follow the link provided in the card above. Now, I will run this application to show the initial output. The diagram canvas has been created. Look at this image, it represents the hierarchy of an organization, from top-level management to bottom-level employees. I will show you how to create this organizational chart using the Blazor Diagram component. First, let me create a list of data containing organizational details and bind it to the component. To do that, I create a class, Hierarchy Details. And define the properties ID, Role, and Manager. Then, I define a list of type, Hierarchy Details, with the name, Diagram Data Source. And assign values to ID, Role, and Manager. Each object in the list renders as a node in the organizational chart. The ID field is to uniquely identify a node. Next, the role field value will be displayed as the node's content. And lastly, the manager field is to establish the parent-child relationship between the nodes. Say for example, here the object with general manager value acts as a parent of the assistant manager object. To identify this parent-child relationship, the manager field of this second object is assigned with the ID value of the first object. In the same way, other objects do have the appropriate values mapped to its manager field. Now, I bind this data source list to the component by defining the data source settings tag and assigning the list to the data source property. To specify the diagram component about the child and parent node information, I map the ID property with the ID field from the data source and parent ID property to the manager field. Next, I need to set the type of layout to display the role hierarchies in an organization. So, I define the layout tag and set the type property to organizational chart. I save the changes and run the application. You can see that the organizational chart layout has been created with the provided parent and children nodes. But, you can see the connectors are getting collided with other nodes. To align them properly, I need to set their type to orthogonal. To do that, first I add an event, connector creating with the event handler, connector create. This event will be triggered whenever a connector is created. I define the event handler, connector create, which receives the diagram object as an argument. This parameter holds the details of the current connector. Here I set the connector type to orthogonal. You can see the connectors are aligned properly. The next step is to set the annotation for nodes to display the role of employees. For that purpose, I add an event, node creating, with the event handler, node create. This event will be triggered whenever a new node is created on the diagram component. I define the event handler, node create, that receives the diagram object as an argument. This parameter holds the details of the current node. Now I create an instance for the node class, called newNode, and assign this casted parameter. Then, check whether the data of this node is a JSON element. And deserialize the node object to the hierarchy details class type, using the JSON deserialize method. And assigned it to node data. Next, I create an instance hierarchy data for the class hierarchy details and cast the node data to the hierarchy details class type. Using this instance, I define the annotations property and create an instance for the diagram object collection of type shape annotation and set the content property to the role field. The annotations are now set to the nodes. To make this layout chart visually appealing, I am going to set the height and width of the nodes and fill them with background colors. Inside the node create method, I set the node height to 50 pixels, node width to 150 pixels. Then, I add the color property to the hierarchy details class and modify the data source by defining its values. Here, I have used different colors for different roles in the organization. I define the style attribute and assign the color field to the fill property. See the layout nodes rendered with the defined background color, height, and width. Now, let's see how to position and align this layout. By default, the horizontal space between the nodes is 30 pixels, and the vertical space between the nodes is auto. To customize the spacing, define the horizontal spacing property and set its value to 50 pixels, and the vertical spacing property to 50 pixels. Look at the layout, the spacing between nodes is as defined. See the layout displayed in top to bottom orientation by default. Along with this default orientation, the diagram also supports 3 more modes, based on the position of the parent node. They are bottom to top, right to left, and left to right. I will show you how to display the layout with bottom to top orientation by defining the orientation property in the layout tag and setting its value to bottom to top. The layout is now rendered with the bottom to top orientation. You can also see the other orientation modes right to left and left to right here. By default, the subtrees are aligned in alternate mode, which means the subtrees, Design Supervisor and Development Supervisor, are aligned alternatively on the parent node, Design Manager. Apart from this default alternate alignment, the diagram also supports left, right, center, and balanced. Let me show you how to set the left subtree alignment. To do that, I add the event, getLayoutInfo, with the event handler, getLayoutInfo in the layout tag. This event will be called whenever the layout is created. Then, I will define this event handler, getLayoutInfo, which receives diagram and tree info objects as arguments. Using this tree object, I will check whether the tree has subtrees. And if it does, I define the alignment type property and set the subtree alignment value as left. I also add the orientation to vertical and offset to 20 pixels. I return these options. Look here, the subtrees are aligned in the left position. Let me show you the other alignments as well. The right, center, and balanced. Notice, all the nodes are laid out in their dedicated part of the tree. If you want to specify any node as an assistant to another, use the assistant property. Let me show you how to make the assistant manager node an assistant to the general manager node. Within the getLayoutInfo method, I will get the current node from the diagram object. And check if the role of the current node is General Manager. If so, I add the Assistant Manager node to it. Then, I remove the Assistant Manager from its original position. See, the Assistant Manager is now the assistant to the General Manager. In this video, you have seen how to create an organizational chart using the Blazor Diagram component. You have also seen how to align and position the layout using orientation, horizontal and vertical spacing, subtree alignment and assistant properties. If you would like to see the working example, you can download it from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also provided a link where you can see if you qualify for a free license key to use our Blazor products through our community license. If you found this video useful, do like the video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.